Catherine witnessed something that they call a phenomena. They say the dead don't speak. That once someone is gone, they're truly gone forever. That death is the final word in every conversation, the closing of every door. But what if I told you I received a letter from a man who died 70 years before I was born? What if I told you that letter knew things about me, intimate, impossible things that no living soul could know? I'm a historian. I deal in facts, in provable truths, in documents that can be carbon dated and authenticated. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in messages from beyond. Or at least, I didn't. Not until 3 months ago, when everything I thought I understood about reality, about love, about the thin line between the living and the dead, shattered like glass. 3 months ago, my grandmother passed away. While settling her estate, I found a locked box hidden in her attic. Inside, dozens of letters, photographs, and this envelope, sealed, unopened, with my name on it. A name this man couldn't possibly have known. I've spent 3 months trying to rationalize this, trying to find the logical explanation. Maybe it was addressed to a different Catherine Wright, a coincidence. Maybe my grandmother wrote it herself as some kind of elaborate fiction. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but the handwriting matches other letters in the box. Letters written to my grandmother, Eleanor, in 1952. Love letters. Passionate, desperate, forbidden love letters. And tonight, after weeks of research, after tracking down records and interviewing distant relatives who remembered whispers of scandal, after staring at this envelope until my eyes burned, tonight, I'm going to open it. Tonight, I'm going to step through whatever door this opens, even if it destroys everything I thought I knew.
My fiancé, ex-fiancé. Daniel always said I lived too much in the past, that I preferred dead people's stories to building a life with him. Maybe he was right. But he never understood that some stories refused to stay buried. We were supposed to get married last spring. Instead, I called it off 3 days before the wedding. I couldn't explain why. I just knew something wasn't finished. Something I hadn't discovered yet. I opened the seal and read the letter. My dearest Catherine, though we have never met, I have loved you across the impossible distance of time itself. I know how insane that sounds. I know you're probably questioning your sanity, or mine, or whether this letter is some cruel hoax. But I swear to you, on everything I held sacred, on the love I bore for your grandmother Eleanor, every word I write is truth. By the time you read this, I will have been gone for many years. Decades, perhaps. The world will have changed in ways I cannot imagine. But love, true love, doesn't obey the rules of chronology. It doesn't care about decades or centuries. It transcends. It persists. It waits. I have been waiting for you, Catherine. Waiting for you to be born, to grow, to become the woman who would finally understand what Eleanor and I could not. Find me in Cairo. Room 237, Hotel Majestic. The truth of who you are, who we are, who your grandmother was, and who you are meant to become, all of it waits there, in that room where my story ended and yours must begin. Don't be afraid. The answer to every question that's haunted you, every inexplicable feeling of incompletion, every moment you felt like you're living someone else's unfinished life, it's all waiting in Cairo. Yours eternally, across time, across death, across the unbridgeable gulf between what was and what must be, James Morrow. He looked exactly like Daniel. Not similar. Not reminiscent. Exactly like him. The same jawline, the same way his eyes crinkled at the corners, the same slight asymmetry to his smile. It was like looking at a photograph of Daniel in costume, Daniel playing dress-up in the 1950s. But it wasn't Daniel. It was James Morrow, British diplomat, born 1908, died in a fire at Hotel Majestic in Cairo, 1952. Dead for 33 years before Daniel was even born. Two men, separated by decades, wearing the same face. Coincidence? Genetics? Reincarnation? Or something stranger, something that suggested the universe has patterns we don't understand, connections that logic cannot explain. I held that photograph in my shaking hands and I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was going to Cairo. That I had to go. That every choice I'd made, every instinct I'd followed, every moment of doubt about my own life had been leading me to this. To him. To whatever truth waited in room 237.
14 hours to Cairo. 14 hours suspended between earth and sky, between the life I knew and whatever waited on the other side of this journey. I bought the ticket with my emergency credit card. I told no one where I was going. Not my sister, not my colleagues at the university, not Daniel. Especially not Daniel. What would I say? I'm flying to Egypt to investigate a love affair my grandmother had 70 years ago with a man who might or might not be haunting me from beyond the grave. A man who looks exactly like you? He'd think I'd finally lost my mind. Maybe I had. Maybe I was having some kind of breakdown and this was how it manifested. Chasing ghosts across continents, abandoning my tenure-track position, risking everything for a mystery that would probably have a disappointingly mundane explanation. But I couldn't stop. The letters had consumed me. Every night for 3 months. I'd read them by candlelight, hearing James's voice in my head, feeling the passion and longing that poured from every word. He'd written to Eleanor almost daily during their year together. He documented everything. Their first meeting at a New Year's Eve party, their secret encounters at the hotel, the impossibility of their situation, the knowledge that their love was doomed from the start. James Morrow was a British diplomat stationed in Cairo during the last days of the British occupation. He met my grandmother, Eleanor, at a party hosted by the American Embassy. According to his letters, it was love at first sight, that rare, devastating kind of recognition where you see someone and know instantly that they're going to change everything. But their love was impossible. He was married to a woman back in London, a diplomatic marriage arranged by their families. Eleanor was engaged to my grandfather, a respectable banker who'd proposed before she left for her year abroad teaching English. They knew they had no future. They knew every moment together was stolen time. But they couldn't help themselves. For 1 year, they loved with the kind of intensity that most people never experience in a lifetime. And then, on the night they'd planned to run away together, Christmas Eve, 1952, Eleanor received a telegram. Her mother was dying. She had to choose. Stay with James and lose her family forever, or go home and lose the love of her life. She chose to go home. And 2 hours after she left for the airport, the fire started. James Morrow burned to death in room 237. Or so the official records claimed. But these letters, the ones I held in my trembling hands, told a different story. A story that suggested death wasn't the end. That suggested James had been waiting, trapped somehow, for someone to finish what he and Eleanor had started. Waiting for me. As the plane descended into Cairo, I watched the sun rise over a city that was ancient when Rome was young. The pyramids emerged from the morning haze like monuments to impossible things, to mysteries that have defied explanation for millennia. And I thought, if the pharaohs could build doorways to the afterlife, if people have believed for thousands of years that love can transcend death, then maybe, just maybe, I wasn't crazy. Maybe the impossible was just another word for things we haven't yet understood. The pilot announced our descent in Arabic, then English. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely fasten my seatbelt. In a few hours, I would walk into room 237, and whatever I found there, ghost, memory, delusion, or truth, my life would never be the same. Cairo assaulted my senses. The smell of cardamom and car exhaust, the sound of prayer calls mixing with traffic horns, the press of bodies in the Khan El Khalili market. I'd been here before on a graduate school research trip, but it felt different now. Charged. Every face in the crowd could be watching me. Every shadow could be hiding something. I was being paranoid. I knew that, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was expected. That this city, this ancient sprawling chaos of a city, had been waiting for me just as James claimed he had. I took a taxi to the old district, to streets that hadn't changed much since the 1950s. The driver asked me 3 times if I was sure about the address. That place, no good, he kept saying in broken English. Bad history, bad gin spirits. Even the locals knew something was wrong with Hotel Majestic. But I had to see it. I had to know. The hotel was a corpse. That's the only way to describe it. Once magnificent, Art Deco grandeur from the golden age of travel, now rotting from the inside out. The lobby chandelier hung at a dangerous angle, crystal pendants missing or shattered. The reception desk was covered in decades of dust and bird droppings. Windows were broken, letting in the desert wind and sand. No one had stayed here in years, maybe decades. It should have been condemned, torn down, replaced with something modern and profitable. But somehow it endured, this dead thing, this monument to a tragedy from 1952. I stood in that ruined lobby and I could feel it. The weight of grief that saturated the walls. The echoes of joy and horror layered into every surface. Hotels are like that. They absorb the emotions of everyone who passes through them. And this hotel had absorbed something that refused to dissipate. Room 237. The concierge, if there had ever been one, was long gone. But I knew where to go. James's letters had described every detail. 3rd floor, east wing, overlooking the street where jacaranda trees used to bloom. As I saw the room, I said, "This isn't possible. This cannot be possible." The hallway was decay. Peeling wallpaper, collapsed ceiling tiles, the smell of rot and age. But room 237? Pristine. Perfect. Frozen in 1952 like a museum diorama. Except museums don't have fresh jasmine flowers on the nightstand. Their perfume so strong it made my head spin. Museums don't have curtains that move in a breeze from a window that should be broken but isn't. The bed was made with military precision. The Art Deco lamp on the desk glowed softly even though there couldn't possibly be electricity. A record player sat in the corner, a vintage Victrola, and as I stepped fully into the room, it began to play. Billie Holiday, "I'll Be Seeing You," the same song James mentioned in his letters, the song that had been playing at the party where he met Eleanor. I stood frozen in the doorway, every rational part of my mind screaming that I should run, should get out of Cairo, should get on the next plane home and burn every letter and never speak of this again. But I couldn't move, because on the desk, arranged as carefully as if placed there this morning, was a sealed letter, addressed to me, in handwriting I'd studied for 3 months. "My darling Catherine, if you're reading this, then you've found your way to me as I always knew you would, as I have seen you would, in dreams and visions across 70 years of waiting. What I'm about to tell you will sound like madness, like the ravings of a mind broken by grief and loss. But I swear on every moment I loved Eleanor, and I loved her more than life, more than breath, more than salvation itself. It is truth. You are not reading words from a dead man. You are reading words from a man trapped between death and life, between the past and present, waiting for the one person who could understand, who could break the cycle that has held me here for 7 decades. The fire of 1952 didn't end my story, transformed it. It locked me into this moment, this room, this eternal repetition of the worst night of my life. I exist here, Catherine, in this impossible space, because I made a choice 70 years ago that echoed forward through time. I let Eleanor go. I told her to choose duty over love, family over passion. And she did. And I've spent every moment since wondering if I was a coward, if I doomed us both to lives of quiet regret because I was too afraid to fight for what we had. Come to the rooftop at sunset. I'll explain everything. Trust your heart. Trust the man you loved. Daniel showed me that love transcends logic, that it persists through incarnations and echoes forward through bloodlines. You and he are Eleanor and I, given another chance. Don't waste it as we did. Yours waiting, James. P.S. Your grandmother knew. She visited me once, near the end of her life. She understood. She forgave me. Now you must choose whether to forgive yourself.
I wasn't thinking clearly. Every instinct I had as a rational person, as a scientist, as someone trained to analyze evidence and draw logical conclusions, all of it was screaming that this was impossible, that I was experiencing some kind of elaborate hallucination, maybe from mold spores in the hotel or carbon monoxide or just the psychological break I'd been heading toward for months. But another part of me, a deeper, older part, was absolutely calm. That part knew this was real. That part had always known something was wrong with my life, something incomplete, something borrowed. I climbed those stairs as afternoon faded to evening, as Cairo transformed into that magical blue hour when the ancient and modern blur together, when you can almost believe in anything. The rooftop should have been dangerous, unstable, another collapsed ruin. But it was a garden. Impossibly, a rooftop garden, lush, maintained, blooming with jasmine and roses and bougainvillea. The scent was overwhelming, intoxicating. And there, standing by the edge where a wrought iron railing separated the garden from a 3-story drop to the street below, was a man. He wore a white linen suit from the 1950s. His back was to me. The setting sun made his hair glow copper gold. And when he turned, God help me, when he turned, he was real, solid, 3-dimensional. Not a ghost, not a shimmer, not a trick of light. A living, breathing man who looked at me with eyes I'd seen in photographs, in my dreams, in Daniel's face every morning we'd woken up together. James Moreau. Dead 70 years. Standing in front of me, no older than the day he died, with an expression of such profound longing and relief that it made my chest ache. He didn't speak at first. Just looked at me like I was water and he'd been dying of thirst. Like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking for longer than I'd been alive. He was real. Solid. 3-dimensional. Not a ghost, not a shimmer, not a trick of light. A living, breathing man who looked at me with eyes I'd seen in photographs, in my dreams, in Daniel's face every morning we'd woken up together. James Moreau. Dead 70 years. Standing in front of me, no older than the day he died, with an expression of such profound longing and relief that it made my chest ache. He didn't speak at first. Just looked at me like I was water and he'd been dying of thirst. Like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking for longer than I'd been alive.
James, gentle saying, "Hello, Catherine. I've been waiting for you, for so long. Longer than you can imagine." I drew out a knife, trembling, and said to him, "Stay back. Don't come any closer. Who are you? What are you? How are you doing this? This is impossible. You died in 1952. I saw the death certificate. I read the newspaper accounts of the fire." James had a sad smile and said, "I'm exactly who I appear to be. James Morrow, born April 12, 1908, in London. Died or failed to die December 24, 1952, in this very hotel. Except I didn't die, not truly. Not in the way death is supposed to work. I exist in what I can only call a liminal space. Place between life and death, between past and present, between what happened and what should have happened. On the night of the fire, Eleanor and I were here in this garden. We'd made our decision. We were going to run away together, to Morocco, to Spain, somewhere the scandal couldn't reach us, somewhere we could just be together. Damn the consequences, damn our families, damn the proper thing. We were going to choose love. But then the telegram arrived. Her mother, dying, cancer, only days left. And Eleanor looked at me with such anguish, such impossible choice written on her face. And I told her to go. I told her to choose family over scandal. That we'd find each other again. That love like ours doesn't just die. I was noble. I was selfless. I was a fool. James, continuing, voice heavy with decades of regret, saying, "She left for the airport. I stood right here and watched her taxi disappear into the Cairo night. I thought I was being honorable. I thought I was doing the right thing. 2 hours later, I was drinking alone in room 237, trying to convince myself I hadn't just made the worst mistake of my life. That's when the fire started. Electrical fault, they said later. Old wiring. The building went up so fast. I should have died in that room. Maybe I did die. But something happened in those flames. Something I've spent 70 years trying to understand. I made a choice in that moment. As the smoke filled my lungs, as the heat became unbearable, I thought, I cannot leave this undone. I cannot let this be how our story ends. I choose to stay. I choose to wait. I choose to hold space for the love we didn't have the courage to fight for. And somehow, impossibly, that choice was heard, was answered, was granted. The fire took my body but not my consciousness. I was trapped here, in this hotel, in this eternal 1952, watching the world change around me but unable to touch it, unable to move forward, unable to do anything but wait and hope that someday, someone would come who could finish what Eleanor and I started. James says, the fire didn't kill me, trapped me, not in time, in choice, in the moment of my greatest regret. I'm locked here, Catherine, in this exact moment, this exact emotional state. I exist in 1952 and I watch the present day unfold simultaneously. I've watched Cairo change from colonial outpost to modern metropolis. I've watched the world transform through countless televisions and radios and computers that somehow penetrate this bubble I exist in. I've watched Eleanor live her entire life. I was there, invisible, at her wedding to your grandfather, at the births of her children, at graduations and holidays and ordinary moments. I watched her be happy or at least content, and I've watched her carry the weight of our lost love for 60 years. She never forgot me. She never stopped wondering what if. That wondering became a grief she passed to her children, who passed it to you. A legacy of beautiful regret. Catherine says, That's not possible. You're suggesting what? That guilt can make someone immortal. James replies, not immortal. Stuck. I can see the present. I've watched the world transform, but I can't interact with it. Except for this room. And except for you. Because you carry Eleanor's blood. Her regret. She spent her entire life wondering if she made the right choice. She married your grandfather, had a family, lived a full life. But she never stopped loving me. That unresolved love became a weight she carried. A weight she passed to you. Catherine phone's rings and she picked up her phone and answers, Daniel? Daniel's voice on the phone, concerned, saying, Kat, your sister said you flew to Cairo. Please talk to me. I know I pushed too hard about moving on, about forgetting the wedding that didn't happen. But I miss you. I miss us. Catherine, in tears, saying, Daniel, what if I told you I've been carrying someone else's regret my whole life? Someone else's unfinished love story? Daniel replies, confused but gentle, then I'd say it's time to finish it, so we can start ours. Your grandmother visited me once, in 1989, just before she died. She was elderly, I was still 43. She told me she'd lived a good life, but that she'd passed her regret to her daughter, who passed it to you. A pattern of women choosing duty over desire, safety over passion. She asked me to wait for you, to help you break the pattern. Suddenly I, Catherine, understood why I called off the wedding, why I couldn't commit to Daniel. I wasn't afraid of marriage. I was afraid of making the same choice Eleanor made, choosing the safe path and spending a lifetime wondering what if. James says while giving her a letter, "She left this for you." Reading Eleanor's voice, wise and warm, "My darling granddaughter. By now you've met James. By now you understand. I didn't write to warn you against love. I wrote to tell you to fight for it. I chose duty. I chose fear. And I had a beautiful life, but it was always haunted by the question, what if I'd been brave? Don't let fear decide for you. Choose love. Choose passion. Choose the man who makes you feel alive. I chose wrong. You still can choose right. Love always, Grandma Eleanor." Catherine, looking at James, says, "She's telling me to choose Daniel." James, smiling, and replies to her, "She's telling you to choose bravely, whether that's Daniel or solitude or some path you haven't imagined yet, but to choose from love, not fear."
Catherine says curiously, "What happens to you? If I break the pattern?" James, peaceful, says, "I believe I'll finally be released. This trap was never about punishment. It was about waiting for the story to have a different ending. For one of Eleanor's descendants to choose differently." Catherine says, "I was so angry at Daniel for wanting me to choose him over my work, over my freedom. But I never stopped to ask myself, was I using freedom as an excuse? Was I running from intimacy because intimacy meant vulnerability?" Daniel calls her on a video call. Daniel, hopeful and scared, saying, "Cat?" Catherine, raw, honest, saying, "I'm in Cairo. Standing where my grandmother once stood. Where she made a choice that echoed through 3 generations. I'm ready to make a different choice." Catherine, to Daniel, says, "I love you. Not because you're safe. Not because you're convenient. But because you challenge me, you see me, you make me want to be braver. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I let fear masquerade as independence. If you'll have me, I choose you. Every day. I choose you. Daniel, I choose you too. Come home." James, fading away, saying, "Thank you. Tell your daughters about love. Tell them to be brave. Tell them." I don't know if James Moreau was a ghost, a dream, or something my grandmother's love conjured into existence. But I know what he taught me. That regret is a prison we build ourselves. That love requires courage. And that sometimes the past doesn't haunt us, it guides us. My grandmother Eleanor and James never got their ending. But in a way, they did. Through me. Through my choice to not repeat her regret. Love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up, being honest, and choosing each other even when it's terrifying. 6 months later, we got married. Small ceremony. Just family. And as I said my vows, I swear I felt my grandmother's hand on my shoulder. And somewhere, in a hotel in Cairo that no longer traps lost souls, I think James Moreau finally rested. His purpose fulfilled. His love story completed through mine.